everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today is another true crime case. I've been trying to prep it for a while. It's just taken me a little bit longer. It was requested by one of my subscribers, whose name I think is Fishiki or Fiyiki. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but thank you for suggesting it. It's a case I actually know pretty well because it's an Irish case, and it was a really big deal when it happened in Ireland. So I heard about it a lot back then. I listened to a podcast on this case, which was created by her husband. So it's going to be a little bit less of a factual case and more of his experiences, particularly in the aftermath. There's really not an awful lot to this case. I mean, it's pretty short in terms of what happened, but I tried to make it somewhat lengthy and talk more about how he experienced it. But I don't know how long this video is going to be. So let's just get started. I think it'll be just a little bit more conversational, like I do with the Unsolved Mystery episodes where I talk about the true crime cases from that show. It's just a little bit more conversational, I think. So today we're going to be talking about the case of Michaela McAreavey. I don't know if it's McAreavey or McAreavey, but I'm just going to pronounce it that way. So Michaela McAreavey was 27 years old when she was murdered on January 10th, 2011 in Mauritius. She was born as Michaela Hart in Tyrone, which is in Northern Ireland, and she was the daughter of the Tyrone Gaelic football manager named Mickey Hart. So she was pretty well known. Gaelic football is a really big thing in Ireland, and they have the All-Ireland Championship every year where different parts of Ireland play against each other for the cup. And Mickey Hart won it with Tyrone, which is a pretty big deal in Ireland. So she was very well known in the country, but particularly in Tyrone. People knew who she was. She herself was an Irish language teacher, and in 2004, she was also the Ulster Rose at the Rose of Tralee competition. So the Rose of Tralee is like the Irish Miss election. You know, like you have Miss America, you have Miss Belgium, and then you have Miss Universe, where all the winners from the different countries participate. The Rose of Tralee is like the Miss competition of Ireland, so if you win that, you go on to Miss Universe. I don't think she won the actual whole thing, but she was the representative for Ulster. So, she had recently married a man named John McAreavey, and they went on honeymoon to the Legends Hotel in Mauritius. January 10th began like any other day when you're on honeymoon. They had breakfast together in the hotel restaurant, and then John took off on a golf lesson, and Michaela spent the morning by the pool. Then they had lunch together in the restaurant. He said that it was a restaurant very close to the pool, so I think it was like a pool bar. And after lunch, Michaela wanted something sweet with her cup of tea, which she also always did at home. After lunch, she wanted something sweet. Now, they had brought some chocolate biscuits, I think from Ireland, I'm not sure. They brought them, and because it was so hot, they kept them in their hotel room fridge. So she decided to go up to the room and get these biscuits. John, in the meantime, just stayed at the table, you know, like people do when they're waiting for someone, played a little on his phone, was just like waiting. and noticed after a while that she was still not back. Now, I will say this, because the whole event was such a blur to him, he doesn't really give a lot of timelines, and I looked at other articles about this. It's hard to find a specific timeline for everything, so I don't know how long he had been waiting before he realized that she was taking a long time. But he decided to go check on her in their hotel room. However, he couldn't get in because he didn't have his key with him. So he went back to the pool where their belongings were and wanted to get the key card from his bag, but it wasn't there. So he went to reception to ask for a key, and instead they sent a bellboy up with him to let him into the room. As soon as he walked into the room, he saw Michaela unconscious in the bathtub, and that's what he thought she was. He didn't immediately think something was horribly wrong. He thought she was unconscious. Michaela had a lot of back pain, and he thought she had chosen to take a bath to alleviate her pain and that she passed out from the heat. So he took her out, put her on the floor, and noticed that she was ice cold, and that she had bruises around her neck. So at that point, he completely lost it. He started screaming. He started running around frantically. The bellboy waiting outside obviously heard this. He yelled at him to get help. The bellboy came back with the general manager, which, why not 911? But, well, Mauritius's version of it. But eventually, police did show up. Again, I don't know how long this took, but police showed up. Now, John was just beside himself. There was a doctor there, police was there, the general manager was there, and he was kind of just running around, not really knowing what was going on. And at some point he saw the doctor gesture to the general manager, kind of as if to say that she was dead, and he just lost it. The general manager took him aside to give him the news. Police ended up taking John with them to the police station. I'm assuming that, at least in the very beginning, he was a suspect because he was her husband. They're always a suspect. But he doesn't say much about this. He doesn't say whether he was actually questioned at the police station. I don't think he really remembers much of it. He just said that he was sitting in the back of the police car, and they said something to him, which I'm kind of hoping he also got wrong in the whole blur, because it is one of the most awful things I've ever heard police say to someone. They said to him, "It'll be okay. You're young. You'll find a new wife." I can't even, that's horrible. So they eventually brought him back to the hotel, where they gave him a different room. This happened on a Monday, so he spent all of Tuesday in that room by himself. Nothing, didn't know what to do. And then on Wednesday, some of his family and some of Michaela's family members arrived. And on Thursday, they all went back to Ireland, including Michaela's remains. I will say, initially I thought, wow, that's really fast to go home. But then I realized I don't think it really is. I think it's different if your loved one is missing. I think you stay behind to try and help find them. But if your loved one is dead, there's really nothing you can do there anymore. So they all went back to Ireland. This was the first time, as soon as John landed in Ireland, that he saw the public outcry, and not just in Ireland, but across the world. And I will say, I remember that Ireland was in shock about this. It was, like I said, she was really well known, and it was just, I've talked about this before. It's not that common in Ireland to have something like a case this big. So it was very publicized. So the Police Service of Northern Ireland, or the PSNI, stepped in, and they really helped the family. John said that the investigation was happening at such a great distance and they weren't really getting any updates from the Mauritius police. So the PSNI stepped in and created kind of a bridge between the police and the family, regularly giving them updates. They also went out to Mauritius to work with the police there. And they were very happy with how police were treating this. They said that the investigation was done right and that they were really doing their best to find the person who did this. The investigation in total took 18 months. Now, eventually a few hotel employees were arrested. There were 5 in total. The hotel later confirmed that they were a group of employees that were sort of forming like a little club, I guess, to help each other steal from other hotel guests. So there would be like 1 or 2 people on the lookout. The other 2 would go into the rooms and steal stuff, and they had apparently been doing this for a while. And that's what happened to Michaela. They were stealing from them in the room when Michaela walked in and wasn't supposed to be there. So they killed her so she couldn't report them. I will say that's presumably what happened. I'll get into that later, but I don't think it was like fully confirmed that that's what happened. That was the theory. Eventually, only 2 of them were kept, and they were charged with Michaela's murder. Now, their names are pretty difficult. Probably not going to pronounce them right, but their names are Avinash Tribhuwan and Sandip Monea. Their trial started on May 22nd of 2012. John testified that he had actually seen Avinash twice within a matter of minutes after he found Michaela dead. Like, he was in the vicinity of the room on 2 separate occasions. Avinash himself testified that he was brutally beaten by police and he was abused for 3 days, and they ended up getting a false confession out of him, and that confession was that they were stealing and Michaela walked in. So while that is what the defendants said, he later said that that was a false confession, so not entirely sure that that's what happened. Their defense obviously pulled all the stops out to get these guys acquitted. So, first of all, and this is actually true, their DNA was not found anywhere in Michaela's body because she was in the bathtub. That was my first question. I was like, why put her in the bathtub and fill it up? Why? Like, because my thinking was, if she walked in and they were surprised by her and killed her, I would expect it to be like a shock to them that they killed a person and they would just leave her on the floor and run away. The fact that they picked her up, put her in the bathtub, and filled it with water, to me, makes them more of a criminal because it means they stood there thinking about it. And in hindsight, it was most likely to get rid of any traces, which worked because their DNA was not found on her body. Again, I can't fully say that they did it, but nobody's DNA was found on her body except for John's, because John afterwards pulled her out of the water and tried to resuscitate her and had her body in his arms. And the defense had spent months before the trial slandering the police's investigation, slandering John. They came up with stories about John that weren't true. They came up with stories that were true, but that were completely taken out of context to make him look like he was the guilty one. And they talked about how their clients were, poor men, and that they were being accused because they're easy targets, but that they didn't do it. Now, police definitely made mistakes in this investigation. These all happened before the PSNI got involved. So when the PSNI arrived and saw that the investigation was being done well, I think it was. But police made a lot of mistakes before that with evidence. And of course, the defense used that in court. They said that the crime scene was compromised and interfered with on several occasions by police officers walking in and out, not looking where they were stepping, touching things that could possibly have DNA or fingerprints on them. The police cameraman used black and white photos instead of colored. And another officer who was supposed to draw plans of the room actually used an architect's plans and wrote them off as his own, or passed them off as his own. Then a senior crime scene officer supervised taking fingerprints, but he admitted that they found absolutely no, of all the fingerprints they found in the room, none matched the defendants. And he also confirmed in court that the purse the defendants were supposedly stealing from was not tested for prints or DNA. So, before the jury returned their verdict, the judge made a statement to them that they should not consider the reputation of Mauritius when it came to their verdict. They were not politicians, and it was not up to them to concern themselves with how this verdict would affect tourism in Mauritius. Eventually, on July 12th of 2012, Avinash and Sandip were found not guilty by unanimous vote from the jury. The case is currently under reinvestigation. It was reopened August 5th, I believe, last week. And a new police officer in Mauritius is looking at it. I don't know if they are looking for different suspects or if they're looking for more proof to retry the current suspects. I don't even know if you can. I don't know how it works in Mauritius. I know there are countries that when you're found not guilty, you can't be retried for the same crime. But I don't know how that works in Mauritius. I don't really know what to think about this. I don't know why these two men were arrested when there was zero evidence. They found one of the five on security footage patrolling that corridor when he had no reason to be there, but they didn't see anyone else on the security footage, and yet he was released. Like I said, no DNA, no fingerprints of theirs found on Michaela or in the room, so I'm not entirely sure how they came to them. I can't tell you what I think. I don't know whether I think they did it or whether there are others out there that did it. I'm sure they've had their reasons, but there was no physical evidence. What I will say is that I believe 100% they were acquitted because of what the judge said. I feel like the statement that he made about don't worry about how this affects the reputation of Mauritius is exactly what made the jury worry about the reputation of Mauritius. It is ultimately a country that lives largely off tourism. And I think that judge planted a seed in their mind by making that statement. Maybe that's not the only reason. Maybe it was also the lack of physical evidence. But I definitely think it had a lot to do with it. John, in the meantime, remarried. He remarried, I believe, in 2016, 5 years after Michaela died, with the full blessing from Michaela's family. He's very loved by them. He was not, I don't think he was a suspect ever, particularly because there were plenty of witnesses who saw him sitting in the restaurant waiting for her. So, that's definitely not a route I'm looking at. I do believe it was someone local. I'm not entirely sure what they did in the hotel. I know that one of the 5 was a security officer. The others were just referred to as hotel employees, and I did try to find it in articles, but I couldn't. So I don't know. But at least the security officer, if not the others, would have had access to key cards and were able to easily get in and out of a hotel. And John said for a 5-star hotel, it's kind of appalling that they got away with it for that long. So that is all there is in this case. I hope that the new investigation brings some justice for Michaela, because currently we don't know for sure that these guys did it, and regardless, they were not convicted. So I hope that they can find some justice for her. And with that, I'm going to leave it because the dog outside starts barking really loudly. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.